Okay, hello everyone out there, whoever is out there. We are going to start a new series tonight called The Uncovering of Talmudic Legends. Now, Talmudic Legends is a very bad translation, and we'll explain it more at another point, but just briefly to understand. We're about to start a new series where we're going to be reading stories from the Talmud that are going to sound wild and fantastical. Okay? Now, the reason why they sound this way is because in the beginning of the Common Era, when the Talmud needed to be written down and recorded, because the Jews were about to go into exile, and there was a fear that they would forget some of the oral Torah, which was the Torah that was passed down as the explanation for the written Torah. So there was a fear that some of it would be forgotten. And so what happened was the rabbis had to go and to put into writing the oral Torah so that it wouldn't be forgotten. That makes sense. Now, there were parts they did not want to reveal. There were concepts they didn't want to make accessible to the average person. And so what they did is they wove these ideas into these incredible stories, wild, fantastical stories that are so deep and they hit to the heart of the issues, but you can't make heads or tails out of it. And that's really why the beauty of this class. I'm very excited to do it because we're going to start reading some of these stories, and some are going to be mind-blowing. You're going to say, what are they talking about? And we're going to try to unravel them and uncover them. So I want to show you, actually, this book I'm about to show you. I'm learning from the first book that I purchased when I was living in Israel, when I was 21. I was walking by a fair, and I saw this book, and this is the collection of these stories in numerous volumes, this purple book. And when I saw it, I said, I have to have this book. The purple book stood out to me. It was the book of the mystical legends of the Talmud, and I purchased it. I'm going to be reading from that same book that I bought many, many years ago, which drew me in then, and I hope it will draw you in now. So we're going to start right away with one of the stories. This is from the tractate Baba Metzia, page 84, if you want for your references, page 84, side A. And I really, there was no reason why I picked this. I mean, now that I'm into it more, there are certain things that came up in my mind why it was a very appropriate thing we're doing this, some things we talked about this past week. But really, it just popped into my head. A friend of mine, Joseph Skybell, who's a fantastic author, wrote a book on Agadot. He is a professor in Emory, and he had me go through it to give a rabbinic opinion about it. And this was one of the stories he had that he quoted in his book. So it was kind of in my mind. And so we're going to start together with this story. I'm going to read the story to you, and then we'll try to understand what it's about, okay? And it's going to be a strange story. I'm warning you, actually. So here's the beginning of the story. The story says like this. I'll read to you in Hebrew, and then I will translate. So the story starts as follows. So it says that there was a rabbi whose name was Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? It says, Yom Echad Havi Kosochi. One day Rabbi Yochanan was bathing in the Jordan River. Okay? And as we're going to see, Rabbi Yochanan was one of the most beautiful people ever. Okay? He was bathing in the Jordan River. I'm assuming that you can only see him from the back, because what happened was that Chazei Reish Lakish, this guy named Reish Lakish, saw this image of this beautiful person, assuming from the back, I guess, and he thought it was a woman. And Reish Lakish grabbed some type of, vine, and he went jumping into the Jordan River. Now, we're having a lot of stories today about inappropriate behavior. Yes, this is inappropriate behavior, as we'll see who Reish Lakish really is at this moment. He jumps into the Jordan after this person, who he thinks is a beautiful person, thinks he's a beautiful woman. When he gets there, he's quite shocked, because when the guy turns around, it's the rabbi. It's a little uncomfortable. Amrle chelech l'raisa. So the rabbi said to him, wow, your strength should be used for the Torah. To which Reish Lakish responded, shufrach l'nashe. Your beauty should be for women. So the rabbi said to him, Yehaderbach, if you return and you repent, because obviously this guy wasn't such a good guy at the time, Yavina loch achoseh, let you marry my sister. The sharp iminai, she's better looking than me. He accepted. Now, at that moment it says, Reish Lakish wanted to swing out of the Jordan again. He couldn't get out. He somehow had the strength to swoop down, and then when he wanted to get out, he couldn't get out. Why not? So we'll discuss this briefly. At this moment, Reish Lakish is using what's called his Yetzer Hara, his desires, in a certain way, and it gives him this type of power. And he's able to be this strong man. The rabbi sees it and says, listen, your strength, if you take that negativity of your strength and use it for positive, it'll be amazing. When Reish Lakish accepts this upon himself, he's got a little bit of a problem. Now, why does he have a problem? We know we have a story in the parsha which says that Yaakov was used his strength and he picked up a rock no one else could pick up. And the answer is because there's two different kinds of strengths here. The physical, the external and the internal. And Reish Lakish was not able at this point, once he lost he took on the yoke of Torah, he didn't have that other type of strength anymore. And he couldn't pull out. It says Torah metaches kocho. The Torah would weaken his strength. Now, of course, the spiritual strength is much greater. You could do great things. But he wasn't able to swing out of the Jordan like he swung in. Okay. Now, what happens now? So it says that after this, Rabbi Yochanan started teaching him the Torah and the Mishnah, until Reish Lakish became a great man. Now he's a great sage. And you should understand, what happened was, he wasn't only a student anymore. At this point, he already is called a Talmud Chaver. He'd already become a peer and a colleague of Rabbi Yochanan, who was the leading sage of the generation. So Reish Lakish now has gone from whatever he was, which we'll see in a minute what he was, to becoming a great man on par almost with his rabbi. One day, there was an argument in the study hall. And the argument came on the following topic. A soif asokin, va'pigyon. There were all these utensils. One was a sword, one was a knife, one was a dagger, one was a spear, and then we have a saw and a sickle. There was a question in the study hall: from what point are they able to become ritually impure? In the old days, people were very tuned into spirituality. If, let's say, a dead body touched an item, the item would then be impure. But if the item was not an item, like it was just the earth, it doesn't become impure. It has to be that the item is a vessel. So when is the completion of the sword or the spear that it's now called an item, that if it comes in contact with something impure like a dead body, that it will render it impure? That was the discussion in the study hall. So the answer was, Mishas Gmar Melochtan, whenever it's finished to be made. All right, what's that? So they asked in the study hall, when is the time when the sword and the dagger are all considered to be finished, to be complete, that they are now susceptible to being affected by coming in contact with something impure? So Rabbi Yochanan said, it's when you take the sword and you stick it into the furnace. And that's it burns it up and it makes it strong. It makes it firm. It turns it, from iron to steel, however it works, and it makes it into a vessel, and it makes it into a sword. That's the moment when it becomes a sword. To which Reish Lakish disagreed, which was very common. He used to disagree with him very often. So he's Amar Mishitzachzachan b'mayim. No, it's not enough that the sword or the dagger, even in this case, was talking about somehow the sickle. It's not enough that it goes into the fire. Afterwards, they would take the sword or the other utensils, they would stick it in water, and somehow that made it glimmer. Which apparently, what that would do is, if you drew your sword on someone and they saw the glimmering of the sword when it got put in the cold water afterwards, that would frighten the person that you were drawing the sword on. So Reish Lakish said, no. It's not just from putting it inside the fire. Rather, it's afterwards when you put it into the water, and that gives it its glimmer, and that frightens the people that are in battle. So at that moment, that's called where it's complete. Okay? Sword's not complete until it goes into the water. Now, okay, it's a nice argument, whatever it is. But now, the next move is very strange. Rabbi Yochanan says back to his colleague student, Amar le, l'stoi b'listuz yusod yoda. I guess, a highway robber, like you were, knows the trade of being a highway robber. Yeah, I guess you know swords because you know who you were. Apparently, when Reish Lakish swung into the Jordan River, he was some kind of bandit. And so the rabbi says to his colleague student now, well, okay, I guess you're right. I guess you know about swords because that's the kind of guy you are. You deal with swords. Dealt with swords. Okay, that's strange. Now, why is that strange? Well, the law is you're not allowed to remind someone about their negative past. So how in the world would this great rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan, say it in this statement, which seems to remind Reish Lakish of his highway robbery days, now that he's become a great righteous person? Reish Lakish takes umbrage, and what he says now is even more bizarre. Amar Le said back to him, Umaya honestly, Rabbi, what did you help me so much? Hasam Rebbe Korali. There, when I was a robber, they called me the rabbi anyway. They called me the head rabbi, the head bandit. Rabbi Freudian slip. Huh? They called him the head bandit. Hacha Rebbe Korali. Now they also call me the rabbi. So what did I really gain? What'd you really do for me? Beforehand, I was called the top dog, the head honcho, the rabbi of the thieves, and now I'm also called the rabbi. So how did you really help me, Rabbi Yochanan? Now at that point, Rabbi Yochanan got a little bit perturbed. Amar leah hani l'cha. I helped you, that I brought you tachas kanfei shechina. I brought you below the wings of the divine presence. Now, at that moment, Rabbi Yochanan, it says, chalish daite, his mind became weak, which implies that something that Rabbi Yochanan happened here. He felt he was maybe in the wrong. He felt traumatized by it, and chalish daise Rabbi Yochanan. And he got, Rabbi Yochanan got bothered and disturbed, and his mind became weakened. At that point, Reish Lakish got ill. Apparently, for causing this distress to his rabbi. Now, at this moment, and this is wild, if you remember earlier, I said that Rabbi Yochanan had Reish Lakish marry his sister. So now they're brother-in-laws. So comes along Reish Lakish's wife and says to her brother, pray for my husband. Pray for him. What's going to happen to me? And Rabbi Yochanan wouldn't do it. They said, no, Hashem will take care of the situation. I'm not doing that. And the wild story comes out now. After this, Reish Lakish got sicker and sicker, and he died. After this, the Talmud says that Rabbi Yochanan went into a tremendous type of depression. It says what happened was afterwards he was so in pain over his student colleague Rabbi Reish Lakish that he was flipping out. He was in pain. He was so upset. The rabbi said, we got to find someone who could go and learn with him, to get his spirits up. They sent this great rabbi, Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, and every time Rabbi Yochanan said something, Rabbi Elazar ben Padas said, oh, that's fantastic. It's a great point. I have a text that supports you. So the rabbi says to Rabbi Yochanan, says, do I need you to tell me that I said something good? I know I said something good. That's why I said it. You're not like Reish Lakish. They say you're like Reish Lakish. Every time I said something, Reish Lakish brought 24 questions in everything I said. And I had to answer it. And because of that, we got to the truth. And listen to the way this story ends. It's incredible. So what happened was, at this point, Rabbi Yochanan starts crying incessantly. He can't stop. Kol Bochi v'Omar. He says, where are you, Reish Lakish? Where are you, Reish Lakish? He cried and screamed until he lost his mind. At that point, the rabbis, his friends and colleagues, prayed to Hashem, and Rabbi Yochanan, his life ended too. He died. And they all lived happily ever after. Wow. A very exciting story here, and quite bizarre. Quite bizarre. Okay, let's try to understand. Let's review the story. Those are just Eddie Schauder's here. Good to see you, Eddie. Wow. Jessica's here. All right, let's try to review what happened in the story and try to make some sense out of this story. Let's get the story again. Rabbi Yochanan, very beautiful person. He's in the Jordan River. Reish Lakish swings in after him, thinks it's a woman, tries to grab him. And the rabbi sees the strength of this man, says, your strength has to go for Torah. To which he says back to him, your beauty should be for women. So he says to him, listen, if you repent, then I'll let you marry my sister. She's Belik and Anaya. He says, okay. He marries, and then he starts learning, becomes a great person. Then we had the strange story. They're talking about what point it's complete, the making of a sword or a dagger. And the rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan, said when it goes into the furnace. To which Reish Lakish said, no, it's not done then. It's only after you put it into the water, which makes it glimmer, and then the sword's really complete, because when a person sees it, he's scared of the sword because he sees a glimmer. That's when it's complete. To which the rabbi said, yeah, I guess a thief knows about this type of stuff. Now, that's a big problem. Because, as I said before, it's forbidden to remind someone who had a bad past about his past. So, what kind of statement is that? And it gets worse. Then, Rabbi Reish Lakish says back to him, hey, would you help me? I was the top dog when I was a thief. I'm a top dog now. They called me rabbi then, they call me rabbi now. Would you help me? And that's even crazier. What is he saying? That beforehand I was a top dog, and what did he help you? He helped you tremendously. It's bizarre. And then finally, Rabbi Yochanan says back to him, listen, I brought you under the divine presence. And then there's silence, and somehow then Rabbi Yochanan thinks he did the wrong thing. He gets weak in his mind. Reish Lakish dies. He won't pray for him. And then he himself dies also because he's so distraught that he lost his student friend. Now, what is going on here? Let's try to understand this, okay? First, I'm going to complicate things a little bit more, okay? I'm going to complicate things a little bit more. We have to understand who Rabbi Yochanan is and who Reish Lakish is. Who are these people? The Talmud goes before him through a really, really weird discussion. It talks about how beautiful Rabbi Yochanan was. Like, who cares? It's strange. But it goes through a whole discussion. It says, let's listen to how it describes this. This is very bizarre. It says like this. Rabbi Yochanan said about himself, I am from the beautiful people that remained of Jerusalem. I'm the last remaining beautiful person in Jerusalem. Now, Talmud says, if you want to see his beauty, here's what you got to do. It says you got to take a silver goblet, okay, when it comes out of the crucible, fresh out of the fire. And then you put inside of it pomegranate seeds. And then you put inside of it rose petals. Okay? And then you'll get a glimmer of the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan. That's so weird, and who cares? Let's try to understand this a second. Okay. All right, we talked past couple of weeks about there's two different powers in the world, two different flows in the world. There's one that we talk about is called water, kindness, giving. Water, when it combines with flour, it turns it into a dough. Water unites things. Okay? Water out of control becomes desire. That's misplaced. Water in the positive sense is giving to make things grow. Fire, on the other hand, is the opposite. Fire does not make things unite. It makes things disintegrate. It breaks things up into their lowest parts. And therefore, fire in the bad way is just anger. Fire in the good way is having awe and seriousness about something that needs to be understood properly. It's called yira, awe. Water is called love, and fire is called awe in the positive. In the negative, water is called inappropriate desire, and fire is called anger. And these are two dimensions that are really always happening. And we talked about it on Saturday night to understand what root you come from. You come from either the side of the kindness, the water, the fire, or the blend of the two, which is called truth and balance. Where is Rabbi Yochanan from? Let's understand. It says that if you want to see his beauty, you would take a silver goblet that came out of the fire, fresh, never been used. Now, when you think about colors, which color would you think is lined up with the idea of water, of love, of giving? And which color would you think is lined up with power, control? The white color would be lined up with the giving, as opposed to the red, which is lined up with that type of power and control. So the way you see Rabbi Yochanan's beauty is you take the white, which is the beauty, the giving, and it's even the word. The word is called Hebrew called kesef. Kesef is in Lush the word nichsof nichsafti. I yearn for something. It's yearning. But Rabbi Yochanan's beauty was only that in the backdrop. You take red pomegranates, it says. That's the red. And what that is pomegranates represent the 613 mitzvot, and there are many seeds in the pomegranate, like the mitzvot. He puts the seeds, the fiery ones, into the backdrop of the silver cup. Then you take a red rose, and you put it also there. And what that represents then is, it represents also the red. The rose is called, that we call the rose amongst the thorns. There's the spirituality which always has around it the thorns. That's why if you look in the holiest places in the world, holiest places in Israel, you'll find a lot of problems around there, because it says that the thorns surround the rose. The rose is the beautiful thing and has thorns around it. So the rose represents the spirituality. You take the red rose and you put it onto the silver goblet, and you have a taste of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan's power was, he was called the side of gevura, the side of strength. He had what's called riska d'oraisa. He had a certain fire in him that was permitted to him because it was a fire of truth and Torah. I mean, there are different rabbis in the world, and they function different ways. Most people like the soft, cuddly rabbis, the ones who are kind and giving. I've met some of the other type who are fire. They're fire. And one I think about who was one of the greatest sages of our generation, and he said that about himself. He said he's fire, and you're in his presence. I mean, it was frightening, but it was permissible because he was a fire that was a fire for truth and awe, and that really was Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the Talmud goes into another point and says very strange. It says, wait a minute, how can you tell me so beautiful? It quotes another Gemara that says that all these people that were so beautiful, they look like Adam, and Rabbi Yochanan was not mentioned. So you know the Talmud answers? The Talmud answers, Rabbi Yochanan was not included there because his beauty was different. What was that? It says, he was a man, a rabbi who lacked a beard. Couldn't grow a beard. What does that mean? What are we talking about? So let's try to explain to you. The beard here, as Eddie, I haven't seen you in years, Eddie. See, my beard's turning white over here. So as the beard gets longer and wider, it represents rachamim, compassion. That's what it represents. And that's even the white color. When a person gets older, when you're a parent, so what happens is, you have to teach your kid and you have to tell them what to do. When you become a grandparent, you don't function that way. With my grandkids, I tell my kids, I say, I'm not telling them what to do. I just want to be the grandpa. I want to give them whatever they want. That represents the long beard and the white, which is the side of kindness, as we said before. Rabbi Yochanan lacked a beard. He lacked the experience of the representation of that type of the chesed. He was a fiery sage. And so was his student, Rabbi Reish Lakish. They were two fiery, great people. Very, very great. But their approach was both fire. And now they got into it. Let me try to explain now what happened. So, as the story happens, we said in the beginning that Reish Lakish apparently was a highway robber. In his early years, he was a person who was not doing good stuff. Rabbi Yochanan brings him back. And that's true. When they're learning this topic about the sword, when does a sword become a sword? And Reish Lakish says, no, it's not the fire. It's when you put it in the water because it makes the people afraid when they see it. Rabbi Yochanan says to him, well, a thief knows about thievery. You're a robber. You know about these things. Rabbi Yochanan was not trying to insult him. What was he trying to do? Let's try to understand this. It's a very deep point. What he was trying to do is the following. There's a principle we've talked about many times that tshuva, returning, is so powerful that when you do something wrong in your life and you fix it up later, the negative thing you did becomes considered to be a mitzvah, a positive thing if you fully change. Okay, I'll give you an example. If you had a husband, for example, who was not nice to his wife and did something bad, and what happened was, I read about this guy. I don't know, it was some sports player who was just a fool. He used to pull out the chair from his wife and made her fall down. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Imagine someone who did something bad. And what happened was they realized that what they did was so bad, they became the most sensitive person imaginable. Okay? Imagine that. And what would happen then is this couple who had a hard time because the person made a mistake and was an insensitive person now became sensitive. So imagine now 20 years pass and the wife one day brings the husband a present, says, happy anniversary. The husband says, anniversary? It's not our anniversary. And she says, no, it is. And he's like, oh, I'm in trouble. I don't remember it's our anniversary. She says, no, this is the anniversary of the day when you pulled the chair out from underneath me. The husband's like, what? How could you remind me of that? I changed my whole ways. And the wife says, yeah, I understand. That's why it's our anniversary, because that negative thing that you did was the catalyst for all the good things you did afterwards and who you became. And that's the idea, that the negative things we do in our lives, when they motivate us to change, they become themselves positive things. God rearranges the story that the negative thing becomes positive, becomes a mitzvah. It's amazing. It's amazing what you could do. You could change the past. We found that in quantum physics, that it doesn't work. Time does not work the way you think it does. It can go backwards. That's what Torah is telling us. Time can go backwards. You could change your past and turn it when you see your edited movie, the end of your life, the negative things you did will actually come out positive. It's fascinating. So, Rabbi Yochanan thought Reish Lakish was there. He said to him, listen, okay, a thief knows his thievery. Not thinking that there was any sensitivity about it. Reish Lakish had come to this level. Rabbi Yochanan thought. But Reish Lakish said, you know what? You see, if that was the situation, if that was the case, and I came to this level, you would not have said a thief knows his thievery. That was insensitive. By you saying that, you actually showed that there's a remnant of my thievery in the world. And that's not true. I fixed it. And how did he prove he fixed it? The words of the Talmud here are so amazing. They say that he said to him, I was called the rabbi back then, the rabbi of the thieves. I'm the rabbi now. What's the difference? Would you help me? Where does the king of the thieves get the nickname rabbi? That's bizarre. And all the commentators trying to figure out, what does he mean by that? Why is a rabbi? And the answer, according to this approach, is so deep and so beautiful. He's saying, by fixing it, became their rabbi. I fixed up the thieves. I gave them a whole new way to understand their world. By them seeing me, all my negative things that I did in the past were flipped to good. And therefore, by you mentioning that, you're actually looking at me in the negative way. He said, would you help me? Not would you help me. He knows that the rabbi taught him Torah. He says, what did you help me? It wasn't what you taught me. It was me that retroactively I became the rabbi of the thieves. By me fixing it up, that showed that in my past, I really wasn't a bad guy. I was a spiritual guy. I was the rabbi that helped all the thieves figure out how to fix their ways. Like I said, the King David showed everyone how to fix up their past. And I showed all these guys too. So it wasn't because I appreciate what you did for me. But now by you implying that I'm stuck in this remnants of what my past was, you missed the point. Now, watch this subtle point here. Rabbi Yochanan, at that point, he was angry. Now he was actually trying to get him back. Because he said to himself as follows. He said, listen, when I say something to you, and you get insulted about something, it usually shows that there's a place where it bothers you. Right? If somebody comes over to you and says to you, you have 3 heads, you don't really care because it's not true. Someone comes over to you and says, you're a selfish person, so there's a place where it hits you because maybe you are selfish. If someone says something to you that has no connection to who you are, it doesn't bother you. But if someone says something to you and it bothers you, then maybe there's something there. Now, Rabbi Yochanan looked back at his student and said, wait a minute. I didn't mean it that way, but you understood it that way. And really, maybe you're not fixing everything up. Maybe you're not the great person that I thought you were. And that's when the line he says, I brought you under the Kanfei Shechina, which the Kabbalists say is a reference to a soul, a lower level soul, that is being protected, but is not really perfected in all of its ways. It's the back and forth. At that moment, Rabbi Yochanan says his mind got weak. Why does his mind get weak? He seemed to have the upper hand, but no. Because he was his rabbi. And he realized now that if he didn't bring Reish Lakish, all the way that his past was really changed, it shows a flaw in him. And this is a beautiful, beautiful idea the sages tell us. Say, kol haposel b'mumo posel. Whoever goes and disgraces someone and says something negative about someone, there's a very good chance they have that problem in themselves. Because otherwise you don't see things. It doesn't bother you. You know, when you get really agitated about someone who does something, we got to look in ourselves first. Why does it bother me so much? Yeah, the guy does his thing. He's a strange character. It doesn't bother me. But when it gets you and you disqualify him and you want to go after him, there's probably a deeper reason. And that reason is because the people, our spirits, reflect one another. And it's like you're like a mirror. The world that I perceive and the people that I come in contact with are in order for me to be able to understand myself too. And so therefore, when I see something in someone, it's most likely I have a receptacle that's picking that up. So Rabbi Yochanan at that point, he gets weak in his head also. He says, oh my gosh. He said, I didn't bring him the whole way. I suspect him of not fixing it up and having this negativity of the power of what he was doing before. I had that in myself. And that's what we said earlier. He didn't have the beard. He was fiery red. And he realized that himself was a lack in him. In that moment, he became weak. And the system of the world is very important to remember. Never, ever, if someone hurts you, don't ask that they get punished, because the rabbis say you don't want anyone to get hurt because of you. Even if there's a reason for it, you don't want that. Because then we start checking, God starts checking, well, what are we doing? So what happened was when Reish Lakish when Rabbi Yochanan got distraught, Reish Lakish got ill. And when he died, Rabbi Yochanan realized that he has no way out. The person that was his other half, that he, in the fire of what he was trying to see in them, had the same problem in himself. And that really is the depth of this story. These sages were so great that it's a problem for us to try to put our own world into it, because we don't really understand what it is. But the fiery discussions they had, because these people were people that were searching after truth. They were from the side of gevura, the side of strength, as we've talked about, the side of self-restraint and awe. And they didn't play around. And when they were looking through the microscope of their own relationship, there was the fire that ended up attacking one and the other from a little misunderstanding of how one was being understood and how they were seeing themselves. It ended up really being both of their downfall. And that's what the sages tell us. Tzaddik Cohen says that there was no other reason. This was, in every other way, they were so refined. And that's the balance that we've been talking about the past week. A person needs to have the balance between the water and the fire. As we said many times, Shamayim, heavens, is called Shamayim because it's Eish, fire, and Mayim. Shamayim. Eish, Mayim, fire and Mayim. And we say all the time, Osa Shalom Rumav, Hashem makes Shalom, makes peace in the heavens, make peace on us. What does that mean? God takes the two opposite things, the fire and water, and blends them together. And when a person is on either side, even though in our case they had what's called Rugza D'Rabbanan, they had a certain fire that was permitted to them. It was permitted because it was a fire of truth. And they were bent on that, and that was okay. But that fire needs to always be guarded and tempered. And that is the perfect balance that we search for in life. So as we are in the parashas of Yaakov, the Ish Emes, the man of truth, the man of balance, because when we come to that, the fires don't burn us and the water doesn't go and make us connect and unite with things that we shouldn't. Okay, have a great one. Good seeing you, Eddie. Maybe we'll Facebook each other and talk a little bit more. And we're going to give a whole schedule here. We're going to be doing live, God willing, soon every day. Different topics, for different people on different levels and different interests. So have a great one. Good night.